The first secret, the hidden face of Nefertiti. The bust of Nefertiti is one of the most recognizable objects in the ancient world. Created around 1345 BC by the royal sculptor Thutmose in ancient Egypt, it has been called the most beautiful woman of antiquity. The face is perfect, symmetrical, serene, ageless. The skin is smooth. The features are idealized beyond what any real human face could achieve. She looks not like a person but like a concept. The idea of female perfection made physical. For over 3,000 years, that is what everyone believed she was. A masterpiece of idealization, an artist's vision of divine beauty. In 2009, a team of researchers from the Charité Hospital in Berlin placed the bust of Nefertiti inside a CT scanner, the same kind of machine used to look inside human bodies in modern hospitals. What they found beneath the outer layer of limestone and plaster stopped them completely. There was another face inside. Carved in stone beneath the stucco exterior, there was a second portrait of Nefertiti, and it looked completely different from the famous one on the outside. The inner face showed a woman with a bump on her nose, lines around the corners of her mouth, slightly hollow cheeks, the small imperfections of age and real human anatomy that the outer face had been deliberately smoothed away. The inner portrait was not idealized. It was realistic. It showed what Nefertiti actually looked like. A real woman, beautiful but human, with the marks of time and life visible on her features. The outer face, the one the world has known for 3,000 years, was a revision, a retouch, an ancient Photoshop applied over the real image beneath. The sculptor Thutmose had first created an honest portrait of the queen, then covered it in a layer of stucco and created the perfect, ageless version that he intended the world to see. Why? Was it commissioned by Nefertiti herself, who preferred the idealized version? Was it a standard practice of royal portraiture to present rulers as divine rather than human? We don't know. What we know is that for 3,300 years, the real face of Nefertiti has been hidden inside the famous one, and it took a hospital scanner to find it. The second secret, the treasure beneath the Buddha. In 2014, drainage work was being carried out beneath a massive reclining Buddha statue at Wat Phra Non Temple in Phichit Province, Thailand. The Buddha was enormous, one of the largest reclining Buddha statues in the country, an object of veneration for local communities for generations. The workers were not archaeologists. They were construction crews dealing with a practical problem, water drainage beneath an ancient structure. And then their equipment struck something unexpected in the soil beneath the statue's base. They stopped work and called in specialists. What was found was a cache of 33 ancient coins, gold, silver, and bronze, dating from the 6th to the 11th centuries AD. Over 500 years of history compressed into a small collection of metal objects hidden deliberately beneath a sacred statue. The oldest coins in the collection predated the statue itself by centuries, meaning someone had been collecting and preserving these objects across multiple generations before hiding them in this location. Why were they there? The most compelling theory is that the coins were votive offerings, sacred gifts placed beneath the statue during its construction or during significant ceremonies intended to remain there permanently, buried in the foundations of a holy place as a gift to the divine. In ancient Buddhist tradition, placing offerings beneath sacred structures was a way of consecrating the ground, of investing the location with spiritual power. The person or people who placed those coins beneath that Buddha statue never expected them to be found. They placed them there for eternity, as a message to the divine, not to future archaeologists. The construction crew's drainage work accidentally intercepted a conversation between ancient worshippers and their god. The third secret, the eyes that were designed to be alive. In the collections of several major museums, There are ancient Etruscan bronze statues from around the 5th century BC, approximately 2,500 years old. For centuries, visitors and scholars noticed something unsettling about these statues. Their eyes looked alive, not in the vague, metaphorical sense that people sometimes use about great art. Literally, physically alive, the eyes seemed to catch light in a way that made them appear to move, to follow the viewer, to glow from within with something that felt organic rather than metallic. Nobody could explain it. It was assumed to be simply the genius of the ancient craftsmen, some quality of their bronze working that produced an uncanny optical effect. Then modern analysis was applied. Researchers examining the eyes of several Etruscan bronzes discovered the mechanism. Inside each eye was a carefully engineered system. Iron pins forming the iris structure, wrapped in thin sheets of tin foil that acted as reflectors. The entire assembly was designed specifically to catch and amplify ambient light, to make the eyes appear to glow, to glitter, to move with the light sources in the room. These were not accidental optical effects. They were deliberate engineering. The Etruscan sculptors had designed artificial eyes that could simulate life, that could make a bronze statue appear to look back at you with something resembling genuine sight. When those statues stood in temples lit by oil lamps and torches, light sources that moved and flickered, the eyes would have appeared to move and shift in response. To ancient worshippers standing before these figures in flickering torchlight, the statues would not have appeared to be art. They would have appeared to be alive. The fourth secret, the guardian of Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey is the oldest known temple complex on Earth. Its massive carved stone pillars, arranged in elaborate circular formations, date to approximately 12,000 years ago. 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids, 6,000 years before Stonehenge. It was built by people who, according to our previous understanding of prehistory, should not have been capable of building it. They were pre-agricultural hunter-gatherers, nomadic people without permanent settlements, without cities, without the organizational structures that we associate with large-scale construction. Yet they quarried, transported, and erected stone pillars weighing up to 20 tons each and decorated them with sophisticated carved reliefs of animals and abstract symbols. Göbekli Tepe has been forcing archaeologists to completely rethink their understanding of early human civilization since its discovery in the 1990s. In 2021, excavations at the site revealed something that deepened the mystery considerably. Embedded in one of the walls of the complex was a nearly life-sized human statue, approximately 2 meters tall, carved from stone, depicting a human figure in a posture that researchers have interpreted as deliberate and ritualistic. The statue had been placed into the wall during the construction of the structure, built into the architecture itself, not added later. It faced inward toward the interior of the complex, and its position and posture strongly suggested a specific purpose. The figure appears to have been placed as a guardian, a protector, a permanent ritual presence watching over whatever ceremonies took place in the structure 12,000 years ago. Who was this figure meant to represent? A god? An ancestor? A protective spirit? The people who placed it there left no written records. Writing would not be invented for another 8,000 years. The guardian of Göbekli Tepe has stood in that wall for 12,000 years watching, and we still don't know what it was watching for. The fifth secret, the statue with human teeth. In the Mexican city of San Bartolo Cuautlalpan, there is an 18th century colonial-era statue of Jesus Christ that has been an object of local veneration for generations. The statue is made of wood and paste, a traditional Mexican colonial construction technique, and is decorated with paint and fabric in the style typical of the period. It is not an extraordinary object by the standards of Mexican colonial religious art. There are thousands of similar statues across Mexico, And then, in 2023, when conservators were examining the statue for restoration work, they found something inside its mouth that changed the object completely. The teeth in the statue's mouth were not carved wood or painted paste. They were real human teeth. Analysis confirmed that the teeth were genuine human dental material, likely extracted teeth, donated by devotees of the statue during the 18th century as acts of religious offering. The practice of incorporating human material into sacred objects as votive offerings has a long history in many religious traditions. Hair, blood, and other bodily materials have been used across cultures and centuries as intimate connections between worshippers and the divine. In this case, someone, probably a dentist or a person who had undergone tooth extraction, had donated their teeth to be incorporated into the body of the statue they venerated. The craftsman who built or restored the statue had used real human teeth in place of carved ones. The result is an object that exists in an unsettling space between art and relic, a sacred image that contains within it a physical piece of the human beings who worshipped it. The sixth secret: letters to the future. In 2021, conservators restoring an 18th century sculpture of Christ at a church in Sotillo de la Adrada in Spain made a discovery so extraordinary that it temporarily stopped the restoration work. Hidden inside a cavity in the sculpture's lower back, a cavity that appeared to have been deliberately created for this purpose, they found two rolled documents. The documents were written in Spanish in the hand of a local priest named Joaquin Minguez, and they dated to 1777. They described in careful and detailed prose the state of Spanish society at the time of writing, the price of food, the crops being grown in the region, the names of local officials, the state of the church, the daily concerns and conditions of ordinary life in 18th century rural Spain. They were, in essence, a time capsule, deliberately placed inside the statue by a priest who understood that the sculpture would endure long after he was gone, and who wanted to leave a message for whoever came after. He addressed his writing, in one section, directly to future readers, people he knew he would never meet, living in a time he could not imagine, reading his words inside an object he trusted to survive. The priest Joaquin Minguez died in 1814. His message waited inside that statue for 244 years before anyone read it. The seventh secret: the love letters of Juliet. In the city of Verona in northern Italy, there stands a bronze statue of Juliet, the fictional heroine of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, who was supposedly set in Verona. The statue was installed in 1969 in a courtyard that the city had designated as the site of the fictional Capulet House. It quickly became one of the most visited tourist attractions in Italy, and over the decades, something happened around it that nobody planned or anticipated. Visitors began leaving letters, tucked into the crevices of the bronze, slipped through cracks in the courtyard walls, pressed into any available opening in the statue itself. Letters addressed to Juliet, asking for advice about love, sharing stories of heartbreak and longing, seeking the blessing of the most famous lover in literary history for their own real romantic struggles. Over the decades, the letters accumulated in their thousands. Eventually, a volunteer organization, the Club di Giulietta, was established specifically to receive and respond to the letters, which now arrive by mail from around the world at a rate of thousands per year. Inside the bronze of the Juliet statue itself, conservators who have examined it have found letters that had been pushed so deep into the bronze crevices that they had been there for decades. Messages from real human beings to a fictional character, seeking comfort, guidance, and connection across the boundary between reality and story. Here is what these 7 secrets have in common. In every case, the object the world thought it understood contained something completely different from what was visible on the surface. A perfect face concealing a real one. A sacred statue concealing ancient treasure. eyes engineered to appear alive, a guardian placed 12,000 years ago for reasons we still don't understand, a holy figure containing pieces of the people who loved it, a sculpture carrying a message across 2.5 centuries, a bronze figure receiving love letters from a grieving world. We have been living alongside these objects for generations, centuries, millennia, looking at them, studying them, photographing them. And in every case, the most interesting thing about them was hidden inside, invisible, waiting, preserved in the darkness until the right tool, the right question, or the right moment of curiosity finally brought it to light. The question is not what secrets these particular statues were hiding. The question is how many objects we walk past every day, in museums, in churches, in public squares, that are still keeping their secrets, still waiting for someone to look a little more closely. If this changed how you look at the world around you, subscribe. Because what they hid from history, we are bringing it back. One truth at a time.